Okay, let's get started and people will join in. David, would you like to do a little reading for us and then
Yes.
I'll read our prayer.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to read. Did any of you see the lunar eclipse the other night? It was beautiful.
Yes.
It
Excellent.
was gorgeous.
Yeah.
Good, thank you.
If you didn't see it, you'll have to wait 1,000 years. Or thereabouts.
Until next May,
There'll be another one, but this was a special one.
This was really special. So to celebrate that and us, I'm going to read Thomas Hardy's poem, At a Lunar Eclipse. He saw an eclipse in London, I believe, in 1902, and he wrote a year later, "Thy shadow earth from pole to central sea now steals along the moon's meek shine, an even monochrome and curving line of imperturbable serenity. How shall I link such sun-cast symmetry with the torn, troubled form I know is thine, that profile placid as a brow divine, with continents of moil and misery? And can immense mortality but throw so small a shade, and heaven's high human scheme be hemmed within the coasts yon arc implies? Is such the stellar gate of earthly show, nation at war with nation, brains that teem, heroes and women fairer than the skies?" Thank you, and back to you, Marty.
Thank you, David. Yes, there was a little interference, but Gail has her hand up. Yes, please.
I'd like to read a very short poem, and actually it was written at Temple last night. And this is really in memory of my daughter. It's been almost 6 years.
Please.
If you don't mind. It's very short and it's quite beautiful. There are stars up above, so far away we only see their light, long, long after the star itself is gone. And so it is with people that we loved. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. But the stars that light up the darkest night, these are the lights that guide us. As we live our days, these are the ways we remember.
Very beautiful.
That was magnificent, Gail. Thank you.
Very beautiful. Thank you.
Rabbi read that last night at service.
It's a very meaningful poem. David, would you like to, the title of the poem that you read, An Annular Eclipse?
No, it's called At a Lunar Eclipse.
Oh, at a lunar eclipse. I thought you said annular. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, it's something altogether, forget it. Anyway, hi, Rabbi Mary. This will be an interesting session, I think. Anyway, I'll read our opening prayer. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Amen. And we left off, I think, when we would
chapter 3, verse 8.
Chapter 3, verse 8. Thank you very much. So God has spoken to Moses from the bush, and he tells Moses that he is, and we discussed this a little bit, that he understands what is going on in Egypt and how the Israelites are suffering. And we'll begin with verse 8, Exodus chapter 3, verse 8.
Would you like me to read this?
Okay, sure.
Okay, and Wendy is here. She's just listening at the moment.
Okay.
Okay. Hi, Wendy. Okay. "And I am come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of that land unto a good land and a large, unto a land flowing with milk and honey, unto the place of the Canaanite, and the Hittite, and the Amorite, and the Perizzite, and the Hivite, and the Jebusite."
Okay, let's stop at this point. And let's take this apart a little bit.
Bruce.
Oh, yes. Hi, Pastor Bruce. Yeah, okay.
Sorry, I'm late.
It's okay. Yes, Larry.
The very first sentence, I have come down. Now, that implies an elevation, possibly a heaven. And we saw that previously with angels and the ladder going up and then down.
Mhm.
And so if we could assume earthly things with people, so God in a way is coming down to intercede or work with people.
Right. Good,
So-
good way of putting it. Any other thoughts, Larry?
No, I want
I
to hear
think it's a
others
very good
about
one.
the height aspect of coming
Sure.
down.
Sure. Don and then David.
Could somebody give a literal translation of come down from the Hebrew? It might
What ver-
be Rabbi Mary, is it?
What verse are we on? I'm sorry.
Verse 8.
Say,
Chapter 3, verse 8.
I have
Mary, you're
come
muted.
down.
Mary,
Well,
you're
I'm-
muted.
Mary, you're muted.
I apologize.
That's
Okay,
okay.
what word were you asking for?
the Hebrew translation of the phrase to come down in verse 8, where God says, "And I am come down to deliver them." How would that be expressed? How would you?
Okay, that's a very good point. Yeah, I would translate it and come down. That's a very good point that I did not notice because I have trouble with it. If I have trouble to say that God is up there. So when it comes down, and it's problematic for me, but we can try to think what the meaning is, unless it's fine with you that he lives upstairs or she lives upstairs or they live upstairs. And I don't have at this second an explanation for that. Don, good question.
Well, what is the Hebrew that it refers to?
Ered. For example, me, I yaradeti, I came down from Israel. There are olim, aliyah, ole chadash, and the opposite will be yored. So in that place that you said, who was that said that nicely, that the angels were going up and down?
Right.
That's the same
Yes.
word. They were up, alu, veyardu. Ered is the same, it's the same root. And but in that one, they start going up first and then they come down.
Yeah.
So with that, there is a little more flex to look at it. But here, I don't, this is really troublesome for me, and I don't have a response. I have to think about it. Bruce, Pastor Bruce, do you have an idea if God was up there?
Up and down. Of course, I have lots of ideas about how God is up and down in Christianity. That's easy for me. I think that up and down can start in the garden. I think that God walked with them in the cool of the day. The God is all around us, and here God is there. God is everywhere. And so in the midst of God is everywhere, up and down doesn't matter as much to God as it does to us.
Good way of looking at it. Very good.
omniscience, omnipresence, all those things
Yeah.
are not up and down. They're everywhere at all times in all places. So
Yeah.
I don't think that God has an up and down as much as we have an up and down.
That's a good point. But here God speaks, and He said, "I'll come down." And
he
you know, if
and
you
he
ask,
has before, and he there's several times within scripture where he comes down to a specific spot, and there's even more times of that in my tradition. So
yeah.
Well,
Well, in our tradition, it's more complicated. But if you ask most people that think that God is a thing or a person or something, kids for sure, where is God? And they'll go like that. They're going up. They pointed up.
Right.
And then here he says, "I'm coming down."
Dwelling among his people makes so much sense if you include
yes,
the tabernacle, if you include
that's
Right, it says,
presence in
exactly
the
"I'll be
correct.
temple. I mean,
That's
right,
right.
right.
yeah, it makes so much
Yeah.
sense.
I'll be, yes, among your people. But let me think, and if you guys don't mind, I might come at 11 o'clock with an idea. I don't know.
Do you remember what I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, that I wanted everyone to think about coming and going? Okay. Suzanne asked me, Suzanne, have you any thoughts on that? I don't. Suzanne.
I knew you were going to call on me, Marty.
Sure. Well, you had a chance. You remembered.
I remember getting your email and reading it, and
Yeah.
oh no. I have no recollection of coming or going or what I was thinking a couple weeks ago.
Well, there's the passage we read about 2 or more years ago. Lech lecha, go, get yourself up and go, if you will, or something to that effect. But now the word "come" is being used fairly often in what we've been reading about Moses. There are more comes than goes.
Yeah, there is one in which all of us know about, when he sent his spies to the land to check it out. So they go to the land and they come back and report. And then the good guys go out. Those were the bad ones. The second ones was going out to the land and coming back to report. That's the first one. That also you have in the brothers of Joseph, they go to Egypt and they come back to the father. That's also a back and forth. These are those that just jumped above.
Yes, there are many. It's a play on the two words. They sometimes, in our colloquial minds, they may mean something opposite all the time. But if you're going somewhere, there's a purpose in that. If you're at the other end, you're coming to see or to do or that. And I think you said the two words, although not the same, they are, it's like cause and effect. Okay, but in a way in which it's a personal, it's a more personal statement. If I go somewhere, or if I come somewhere, it doesn't mean it has to be in the past, or behind you. Yes, Pastor Bruce.
I was thinking of the blessing of Aaron in Numbers chapter 6, where it says, in your coming and your going. I mean, it's very clear that
Right,
God's
right, it's a
blessing
blessing.
is in
Yes.
both directions.
Yes.
Very clear.
Yeah, in the Shema, yeah.
Yeah.
Don?
Don, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I always want to belabor these points, but when God says I'm come down, but a few verses earlier, he manifests himself in the burning bush. So he is present to Moses' human awareness. But now there's some distinction here where seems like where he's come down in some stronger dimension. And I know
Come down, Moses.
That's right.
and
Go
you know,
down.
it's not the first time up till now that God has manifested himself. And I'm sure Pastor Bruce would recognize that God is known in Christianity anyway to actually manifest by inhabiting a human being.
Correct.
This seems to me like one of those really pivotal scenes where I could never know just from a few verses what's really going on, but it just kind of works on me for a long time.
Yes, Rabbi Mary. Thank you, Don.
Pastor Bruce had before me his hand up.
Oh, okay. The other thing.
I maybe forgot. But two things. Just a second, John. I have to ask that before I forget. One thing is directional. When it's directional, we have north and south. Somehow we do that, north and south, which is, it's not right, because if I am in Australia, I'm going up to the continent and I'm down. So, but we use that, you know, I'm going to go down to Mexico. I'm going to go down to Argentina. So that's one thing. What occurred to me, think about this for a moment. When do we human beings go down? Unless you live in the second floor.
Yes, Pastor Bruce. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. David had his hand up.
David was first.
Yeah, thank you. I've had my hand up for a while. But the thing that I want to just add right now is my amazement at the number of ways that God can appear. In Genesis, he appears as three men going into a tent and out wanting food. In Exodus, as we've just read, he appears as a burning bush. He appears as a still small voice. And in Wendy's poem, he appears as footsteps. And then there are two sets of footsteps, but you don't see anybody in the second one. And when things are the lowest as they can get, the invisible footsteps disappear, because, as God said, that's when I'm carrying you. And to that, I would add another thing is, when I'm out in the observatory, I'm looking up at the eclipse the other night, and I'm just feeling the sense. It started when I'm thinking, boy, Frank did a good job building this observatory. It's a wonderful building, and I'm feeling this inner sense of peace. Now, is that the peace of the presence of God coming? I see the presence of God everywhere, and quite often, and often when I really don't want to see that presence, it's there. It appears to me always there in one form or another. And that's the point that I've been wanting to make.
Excellent points. Pastor Bruce, and then Larry.
I think in answer to Rabbi Miri's down, we lay down to sleep. In reference to what David just shared, I kind of go with the psalmist David in saying, where can I go from your spirit? When I go to heavens, you are there. When I go to Sheol, you are there. I mean, you have this consistency, like I say, of God everywhere, up, down, around. It's not missing. But the down, unless you're on an apartment level, I say when I'm going to Mexico, I sometimes have fun with it because of going up to Mexico, because of the elevation, like going up to Jerusalem for the Psalms of Ascent. And so, we're going up 800 more feet to get to Mexico. And so I have fun with that
It is
a little
fun.
bit because of Jerusalem. The Psalms of Ascent take you up. And even at the stairs of the temple, it takes you up as you're reciting. All those things are up and down, if you will, for us as human beings. So, but I think about when I'm down, in a physical sense, or, in a way I'm thinking of, I'm lying down. That's what I'm doing.
Now, Pastor
Very good.
Bruce,
Just a minute.
Pastor Bruce, after you lie down, where can you go downer than that?
Sleep and death.
Well, the
Physically,
death, I guess death and 6 feet under, if you go there. That would be a down.
I'd like to
Yes.
follow up.
right.
Okay, Larry has had his hand up for a while, and then Gail.
Following up on the up down, what about sitting down, standing up? We have the Amidah prayer. We stand up. We say, when we have a belief, this is
Mhm.
what I stand for. So that's another aspect of this hierarchy of elevation.
Okay. And of course, Gail.
I was just going to say, I always, the concept of one to me is very important. That's one of the reasons I converted. It's the sense of one. And I have a cartoon that I saw in the New Yorker magazine one time, and I cut it out. And it shows two waves in the ocean, and one is speaking to the other. Okay. And that we are part of the whole thing. You are just a wave in the ocean. It's all one. It's so intermingled, you really cannot separate, but we need those terms in order to work in a human way with each other, but up and down in directions. But if everything is immersed, like Dovita said, it just feels like everything is one. And that's a hard concept to accept until you're in those moments of meditation or awe or whatever. And then you realize that's really what it's about, is everything is intermixed. There's no separation, anyplace, no borders.
I think that's excellent. I just want to interject a few things. Getting back to the way Larry started the discussion, we always use the comment, God in heaven, God on high is another phrase that we use. In other words, God is above us. We are not the ultimate. And in scripture, I think that's how this is represented. That the concept of God, no matter how you think of God, is that it's so much more than what's here on earth, and it's a totally different concept. Now, just to throw in a monkey wrench into the discussion about direction, when you're down and out, you feel blue. When you're feeling blue.
Exactly.
When you're
Good point.
depressed, okay?
Yes.
And you feel nobody loves you, okay? But you can, I won't go into all the rest of the lyrics, but but when you make something of yourself, then you're no longer a nobody, and people respect you. I'm sort of summarizing that song. Okay, but it's a very easy thing to lose everything. It's harder to regain that. So that's another aspect of this discussion too.
Yeah, I want to continue, Marty, what you just touched upon. It occurs to me that here, Don, for God to go down, because we have here this is a word that's difficult for me to pronounce, anthropomorphy.
Yeah, that is correct. Anthropomorphic.
Okay, making God as us. And as I said to Pastor Bruce, even physically, when we are in the pit, that's when we call for help. And maybe in this case, the idea is we are so low, we are so much suffering, we are not even on earth. We need to be, as Marty said, lifted up. And even if we don't believe in God, Gail, we say something, oh my God, help me, someone help me. But the issue here, so if I think about it that way, that the situation was so bad that they were even like dead underground, that they were suffering so much, and God says, okay, I'm going to go down with you and pick you up. That's Mary's occurrence at the moment.
It could be that too. Yes, Don.
Thank you, Rabbi Mary. On a prosaic level, at the time of the Exodus, there are actually two Egyptian kingdoms, Upper and Lower. And the upper kingdom was actually to the south because the Nile flowed north. So if you went down to Egypt, you were actually traveling north. Down to Lower Egypt, you're actually traveling north. So it just complicates it more. But the point about seeing God in everything, I think that's a skill I had to learn. And it's one of the skills that have carried me through life for decades now, is to be actually looking for God everywhere. And he always shows up in about every case. So to David's point.
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
Don, the question that you asked, what is it going down in Hebrew? And I think that we need to concentrate to the idea of why it says that God went down. Okay, so we cover a lot of usage of going down, but here we say how God goes down since he lives upstairs.
I don't know if you know the old Josh White blues song, Down and Out Blues. When you're feeling really low, you want to listen to that.
Johnny Cash used to, his lyrics talk about this also. So anybody who's interested in Johnny Cash, if you go back and look at those, you'll understand what he was fighting. Yes, Gail.
I was just going to, Mary was talking about, when you're suffering and you're looking for help and everything else. Actually, you've done the separation, not God. Okay.
Point. Excellent point.
So, you're the one that's moved, not God. Let me put it that way. Okay? Because God's there the whole time. I mean, the concept of one, he's always there. So if you're suffering and you're looking outward, you've moved. God hasn't moved.
Right.
If he's in everything.
Good point. Good point. This is becoming more and more Spinoza-like. Anyway, any other comments or any other ideas about the land. It's also the title for a song. Oh yeah, Joanne. Yes, yes, please. I'm sorry.
No problem. When we first started talking about up and down of God, I'm a boater. So I'm thinking of being out on a lake and not being able to see any land. And so the up and down is that direction, up is the sky, down is probably death from some of the places we've been into. But as you get to land, now you can see east and west. And I think one of the difficulties here, we see the people that no longer know up or down, east or west. They just every day trudge to a worser job, a worser existence. And so I think when Moses comes and says he's going to take them away, and that would be going, I think they have a really rough time even comprehending that.
Yes, there are some commentaries that. Yes, David.
It's
That's a
actually-
windy hand.
Yeah, it's open muted.
Yes.
This is just a quick statement, and then I'm gonna allude to something, and I'll have David give you the quote. But when people, one of the things that people say, or I've heard them say, is when you're down as far as you can go, when you feel you're broke and everybody has left you and you have no money and everything is tanking, you're down in the hole right at the bottom and you have no place else to go then but up. And that's when people really look at God to say, okay, God, I trust you, you do something because I can't do it anymore. And along that same line, David, when we were researching more things, Lady Chatterley's, Lady Windermere's fan, that quote?
Yeah, Lady Windermere's fan. We are all in the gutter, but some of us are looking at the stars.
Interesting.
Okay, now I'm done.
Thank you both. Any other comments? Okay, yes, Pastor Bruce and then Larry.
Did anybody quote anything from Sarna this morning yet before I got on?
No.
The commentary, Sarna's commentary?
I'll call you when I'm done.
Okay.
Please.
His commentary, you were asking specifically about the land now, were you not?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. He says that it's really interesting. His quote here is this: milk here refers to goat's milk, a land flowing with milk, therefore suggests ample pasturage and the prospect of much meat, hide, and wool. And honey refers here to thick, sweet syrup produced from dates, not to be the honey produced from bees. Milk and honey were considered among the chief necessities of human life in the ancient Near East, and their combination was thought to constitute a highly nutritious diet, milk being rich in protein, the dried date rich in carbohydrates. Some Arab tribes are known to subsist for months at a time solely on milk and honey. I thought that was very interesting, and I just got some date honey that my wife ordered for me for my birthday from Israel, and it is so good.
Well, two things. Happy birthday, and that.
Oh no, this was a long time ago.
Oh, it was a long time ago.
I'm getting 4 boxes in 1 year of different things from different regions of Israel, and the last one that came had date honey in it. It was really, it's just so good.
Very good. Thank you. Yes, Larry.
Okay, I am looking at the Fox translation. So I have come down to rescue it from the hand of Egypt, to bring it up from that land. So are the people being brought up to heaven to what we spoke about all the coming down, but what about bringing up the people? That's a
Well,
question I'm throwing.
we cover, I think, in our discussions, if you know the task, if you think of any slave, okay, whether they're beaten or not, they lose their self-identity. They lose privilege, liberty. Okay, they can't express themselves. They can't worship the way they want to worship. Everything is being forced upon them. They are cast down. Okay, you can understand why Martin Luther King also, in his speeches, he constantly used the same phraseology. He was quoting a lot of the passages in scripture. And so for the same reasons, and at the time of Passover, one of the things that we're supposed to do, and I don't always do it, but we're supposed to put ourselves in the place of slaves to try to feel what it was like. And part of it is we wolf down, you know, the parsley because we're getting hungry. Okay, but if we chew on it and taste it for what it is, or the piece of matzah and taste it, to spend time tasting this, it brings you closer to certain emotions that were felt by the slaves in Egypt, and how the people had to prepare. We go by a lot of different things. Well, this is the bread of affliction. Okay, some people don't even like it. Well, but it's designed to make us feel like we're there. Okay, and all these different things that we go through. The bitter herbs, including the egg, the roasted egg, or the lamb shank, represent different parts of this story. But there is a design to it to try to get us to feel like it is. So next time, maybe at next Passover, spend a little time over the Seder plate and mulling over what you feel and taste and things like that as you go through the foods on the Seder plate. That's all I'm going to say there. So that's why I say a lot of this is relating to feeling and your emotion. When you're reading the story, you want, that's why we have to remember this story. We're commanded to remember this story. Yes, it's Pastor Bruce.
Just in relationship to the land too, I think it's really good to note that when you look at what is here, the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, I think I said those properly.
You did a very good job.
We always end up putting termites in there somehow, but anyhow, but the bottom line is that there's really seven nations. A lot of people say, oh, it's always been this or it's always been that. Well, it really hasn't always been anything. And the only people, the Israelites, were really the first people to actually claim it as a national homeland. And people forget that. People think, oh, it was owned by somebody else or claimed by somebody. There's no claiming going on before Israel, I don't think, and that somebody can historically figure something else out. I don't see it. And so when you go through this, the first, kingdom with David until around 1000 BCE, then 586 BCE, and then the Jewish states, till about 70, and then now 1948. It seems as if with all of these different groupings of people, but nobody really historically identified this land as their state until Israel. And I believe I'm right on that. Does somebody have something different to say about that?
Suzanne. Suzanne?
Oh, okay. Somewhere in Genesis, and I'm not quite sure where, but when God got upset with the Tower of Babel incident, land on earth was kind of divided with members of his divine council, and Israel was God's portion. And other areas outside of Israel, or what what I guess we would call Israel, went to other members of the divine council, which later became part of the fallen angel crowd. So I look at these tribes, the Hittites and the Amorites and such, as invading God's territory.
Okay.
Something that's not normally taught in the church. I don't want anyone to think that this is a Christian idea. It's not anti-Christian. It's not anti-Jewish. I mean, to me, it's just, something in scripture.
It is when we read later that that the Israelites are being singled out to inherit this land because the peoples that currently are there, okay, did not respect, did not listen to or did not hear the God and did not believe in the one God. These were idol worshipers. But did they really? The question has to be raised when you do not appreciate what the land offers. You lose contact with the land. How many people think of the cattle that are slaughtered when they, that had to be slaughtered to give them that steak? Okay, or the crops that they're eating and the work, not only the work of the farmer, but the growth of the plant. And notice that the leaves on each plant that we eat are totally different. Okay, and then you come to and how in the realm of plantdom, how few of those are edible. Do we appreciate the fact that there's a certain number of plants that we can only consume, just as certain other products? You can't eat all of it. There are some plants you can eat one part, but not the others. They will make you ill. Okay, so if you start thinking along those terms, when you start to see, as David mentioned and others, when you start to see God in everything, I'm reminded of our prayer of gratitude after the meal. In Judaism, don't we say grace after the meal?
Yes.
And Rabbi Mary, you probably know more about that than I do. Aren't there parts in there that refer to this?
Well, what's
It's a very long
interesting is
prayer.
that, yeah, but I'll say in the beginning of the eating, we do have a prayer, and it's a thankful prayer, and all of you know it. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Yes.
So everything that you're talking about is that, yeah, the other one is, it's a long one.
But we do the same thing for wine. We have a lot of prayers because, and in a way that this sort of fits into what we do in the religion, okay, versus what other groups were not doing in the past, that lived in the land of Canaan. And maybe this is one of the things that God wants us to do, is to be more appreciative of the earth and everything. And there are a lot of discussions we can have about that. But I think that it's
Marty,
yeah.
Marty, let me bring up something that I brought up, I think, in the past, that there are 3 ways of prayer.
Yes.
According to what I learned. You have one, which is, I'm grateful for that. You thank God.
Yes.
The second one is you ask, please please bring rain to the land. And the last one is what we say, hallelujah, is just praise God. So when you put these 3 things together, it's a very beautiful way of thinking about how we address the forces, nature, and it's absolutely what you're talking about. I'm grateful. I mean, if we talk about times of famine and that you read about terrible times that people were starving, they were eating grass, they were eating straw. I keep thinking about it every time that I peel an orange. I said, well, maybe I can do something with this peel because people didn't have, and maybe they ate that. So there is the thank, there is the petition, and there is the praise, the petition, and the gratitude.
Right.
Okay. And praise is not like gratitude. Praise is say, praise Adonai, or in some people say the Lord, okay? And the word hallelujah means pray God. Yah is God. Hallel is what we do in Pesach. After all the things, it's praising God. The first one is being grateful for everything that we have. The lunar eclipse and the bread that we eat and everything. And the other one is when we are in stew, when we are in the pit, when we are depressed, when we are, when you are in a concentration camp.
That's right.
It's very difficult to praise God at that time, or to be, so you can be grateful that you're still alive. So anyway, that's, and I think that we need to pay attention to that, because at different times we use the word God in a different way.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yes, Don. And I'm going to let you have the last word on this subject, and then we'll move on.
Okay, coming back to the text, so God's speaking to Moses, and he's telling him he's going to take the people to the land of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, and so on. We don't, how Moses would even know what that means, who those people are, where they live, is an interesting question. But I'm always troubled by the fact that God doesn't tell Moses that Joshua later on is going to have to take the land away from those people. And certainly in the case of the Canaanites, he's going to have to kill them all. I have a great deal of trouble with that. And I just wondered if Rabbi Mary or someone else can comment on that.
Well, I'll tell you something. You know, the first spies that were sent to tour the land. When they come back, they said it's a terrible land, and the people there are like giants, and we are just like ants in that. We are nothing. They're going to eat us alive, blah, 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 blah. And what Moshe does, he just killed them all. Because, and you can say, you know, when I go to do something and you discourage me by saying, no, don't go, you know, you're going to be short, don't go because you're going to that. You put the entire group down. So maybe that's why it did. But that's, I agree with you that it was not said to Moshe, you know, you have a problem coming up. The first problem is the Amalekites that, you know, they attack Israel as soon as they leave Egypt when they were starving and very weak. But you are right, that's not in the promise. They didn't say the Eretz Zavat Halav Udvash, the land of honey and milk, and full of enemies. And you'll have to fight there.
Yes.
You're right.
Good
Right,
point.
but
Good
they
point.
already lived there. The Canaanites lived in Canaan. And, you know, when you call them monsters, I was in the military. The first thing I tried to do was dehumanize your supposed enemy, so you make it easier for you to kill them. And, well, I'll leave it at that. I just don't know if I'll ever get over that problem, my personal issue.
Okay. All right. Okay, well, let's move on a little bit with verse 9.
Would you
And
like me
10.
to read that?
9 and 10.
Okay, and now behold, the cry of the children of Israel is come unto me. Moreover, I have seen the oppression. I have seen the oppression wherewith the Egyptians oppressed them. Come now, therefore, and I will send thee unto Pharaoh, that thou mayest bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt.
Okay. Any comments here?
Similar to verse 7.
It is, and it's also another come. So we've discussed all of those. Any other comments about before we go ahead with the rest of this?
Do you think God was trying to really impress upon Moses that he needs to step it up and lead the people?
At this point,
I mean, it's the second time he said, I've heard. And, you know, now he's saying, I'm going to send you.
Yeah. Well, that's a good question. Let's see if we can answer that.
Okay.
In the next few lines and everything, the few paragraphs. Anyway, David, would you care to read on? Verse 11. Oh, David is not there right now. Anyone else, Gail or Larry, who may have a book in front of them?
Okay, and Moses said unto God, who am I that I should go unto Pharaoh, and that I should bring forth the children of Israel out of Egypt?
Oh.
Should I go on?
Yeah, read through 12.
Okay. And he said, certainly I will be with thee, and this shall be the token unto thee that I have sent thee. When thou hast brought forth the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God upon this mountain.
Okay. Any comments about what we have just read?
Okay,
As Master Bruce was saying, okay, Guy, you're going to be the point of this whole thing. You're going to have to do it. It's a mighty responsibility. So yes, please, Joanne.
I need to know where I am in the Bible at this point.
Okay, we haven't gone very far. We are in Exodus Okay, chapter 3,
Okay,
and we are discussing now verses 11 and 12.
very good, very good. I was in the
Okay.
correct place then. Okay.
I know we've digressed in so many different ways here. Any comments about this?
Well, we need to know that God does not talk to everyone directly. There are very few people that he talk to them and send them to do stuff. With Abraham, he says, go, 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 but that's that. They don't converse. Moshe is the first one that hear God, that does what God's tell him, that, in all his walking in the desert, that even he says, I just cannot stand these people. I just had it, which I don't blame him personally. I wouldn't do that earlier. But there is a talking, and then later on you have the prophets. So it seems to me that these people never heard of one God, of a God that's going to save them, and they need an intermediary to start moving them, perhaps someone that looks like them, someone that's, you're talking with people that had little statues that's what they did. And here Moshe says, well, God told me, and the first question is, okay, give me his name, so maybe it's knowing that the people won't be able to listen to the voice of something, to a voice, to a command. They need someone that speaks their language. And it's a very appropriate for what we do these days, we say you cannot bring someone from outside to this terrible neighborhood and tell them what to do. Find someone from the neighborhood itself who speaks the language of the people.
Good, very good point. Yes, Larry.
I have an interesting commentary from Fox. Moshe had previously been a man whose lack of tolerance for injustice produced violence. Now he is armed with words and a wonder-working object, not a sword or a helmet, but a shepherd's staff.
That's going to come up. Yes, okay.
Nice.
And I think that's very important to remember as we'll read about more of this in a second. But yes, it's a very important concept. Yes, Pastor Bruce.
What struck me in verse 11 was Moses said to God, "Who am I?"
Yeah.
And you have Shmuel saying, "Here I am." You have Isaiah saying, "Here I am." And this man who's going to be a very strong leader is saying, "Who am I?" And I just think the "here I am" versus the Hanani versus the "who am I?" I just found that that was rattling around in my brain. And I thought, isn't that interesting that he starts that way when some of the other people that we see in scripture said, "I'm here," and he's going, who am I? He's already doubting himself. He's already putting himself in a position of wondering if he's really the right person.
What does it say about the
Yeah,
character?
we say about Moshe that the issue of humility
Right.
is one of his characteristics. And I suppose that they quote what you said.
That's very good.
Yeah, maybe so. I would have never thought of Samuel as a prideful person. No, saying, "Here I am."
Yeah.
But anyway, I get what I just, those thoughts were just rattling around in my head. But yeah, it could be from a place of humility at this point too, with the "who am I?" Yes.
Yes. And that's that's what we're going to come across later next year. Okay, humility. They'll have a discussion about that. They're laying the groundwork for it. Yes, Gail.
Just imagining the dialogue would be entirely different if he said, no problem, I'm with you.
He named it.
Yeah. No
That's
problem.
Yeah, I just was thinking about.
Yes,
yeah.
sir.
I didn't have
Yeah.
anything else better to do today anyway, so.
But if you think of the daunting nature of this task that is being set down before him, Moses is, oh my goodness, I didn't ask for this. It's being laid on my shoulders.
Yeah.
So it is a very, and it's going to place him in very treacherous situations. I think Moses realizes that. And we're going to come to some of these in the next few lines. Did somebody else have their hand up? Any other? Oh, yes. Okay, Joanne. Yes.
And for some reason, this keeps going through my mind when I say, who am I? As a chaplain in a hospital, I would go in and the person was very, very ill, and they would talk to me and tell me about this. And usually we would have a prayer, but there were times when I would take their hands and ask them to tell God about this, to really be quiet, etc. And in that moment, in spite of all they were going through, I think they would get the answer to who am I. They were a different person after that prayer. And I think Moses ends up here a very different person than when he asks the question, who am I?
That's
Excellent
very
point.
good. Yeah.
Excellent
Yeah.
point. So God's answer, okay, is that he's going to be with Moses, and he's going to have something to be assigned to show that God is with him, which is what we read, and then when you have freed the people from Egypt, you shall worship God at this mountain. So God is referring, he doesn't use the word me, could have, but he says God. Any comments there? If you use the term to your children, that that they should listen to you all the time, versus you should listen to us all the time. What's the difference?
I don't think there's too
Well,
much difference there.
You know what, Marty? If we look at verse, the one that Moshe says, who am I? He says, Mi anochi, anochi, who am I? And then God says, I'm going to go with you, and you tell them that I, the same word, anochi, sent you. It's not ani, the word ani that we know as I am, but it's anochi, and it's for both of them, for Moshe and for God. Moshe says, who am I? And then God says, Tell them that I is the one that sent you.
Okay. Yes, yeah, I think that's good. Yes, Don.
Yeah, Moses is 100% a mortal person here. And so his obedience to God doesn't change the fact that if he obeys God, that he's, he will live his life and die like all other mortals. But his obedience is very new here because he's only had just seen the burning bush like maybe hours or days ago. And now he's being charged with the responsibility of freeing all the Hebrew people from under slavery of the Egyptians. So I'm just wondering what anybody thinks about his motivations here.
Yeah. He's not obedient and he still refuses. He still, oh, okay. And if they ask this, and if they ask that, and God has to prove him. Put your hand there and put your stuff on the ground. You'll see that God has to do miracles for Moshe to agree to follow his, what you called, commands.
Yes, this is the
It's
first
not
of a
automatic.
series of questions that lead up to that. That's right. Yeah, yes, Pastor Bruce.
I kind of, in the back of my head, I'm wondering really if the fear factor is that, in the previous chapter, he's wanted for murder. I mean, he's murdered someone. Are people going to remember that? Are people not going to remember that? And who is he going to see that might remember that?
And do you think God will remember that?
And that's
No.
the point. Well, the answer is yeah, exactly.
There's commentary that God does remember that.
But the bottom line is that if I, in my own head, was sent away from a place because I was, if I was sent up, what did they used to call it when you were sent to jail, up the stream, or whatever it was called. I don't know I don't remember what it was. Down the stream, down the something. Anyway, if I was sent because I was, wanted for murder and I was sent away somewhere, put in jail, whatever, and yet God was asking me to go back to the very same place with possibly the same people. I hope I would have enough faith to say Haneni, but the more I think about it, I'm going, yikes.
Yeah, this is not easy.
I'm not sure. I was to say, but the reassurance of God being with me is an important concept here that needs to keep all of this in mind as we keep going. But I will be with you is a good thing to know. But I don't know what I would think if I was Moses. I always try to put myself in his spot, and think about how I would think. And I just don't know. I might be a shade terrified to go back to that spot.
Yes, Rabbi Murray.
Well, Moshe he's just like the rest of the people. He never worshipped this God. He never worshipped a force that you cannot see. The voice of Moshe, of God, comes from the bush. He doesn't see anything. But Marty, please, let's read forward more than one verse, because this is going to answer several questions.
Yes, it does.
That were asked.
It does. So if any other readers or volunteers to read? I know David, okay, David, or Larry, you have your books there. Why don't we read through from verse 13
13.
all the way
Yeah.
through 15, the end of 15.
Okay. Would you like me to read that?
Yes, please.
Okay, and Moses said unto God, Behold, when I come unto the children of Israel, and shall say unto them, The God of your fathers has sent me unto you, and they shall say to me, What is his name? What shall I say unto them? And God said unto Moses, I am that I am. And he said, Thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, I am hath sent me unto you. And God said moreover unto Moses, Thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, The Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, has sent me unto you. This is my name forever, and this is my memorial unto all generations.
Okay.
Marty, let's keep going. Let's please keep going.
Okay.
Well, do you have, I don't mind, we can come back to this.
Yeah.
To
But
what point do you want? Because this is a very important aspect to what
Yes.
David has just read.
Yeah. That's. Let's go
Okay.
back to this in a moment. But I want you to see what God does to prove Himself or herself.
Oh, well, okay.
Or herself.
Well, that's going to
Okay,
be a
okay,
very,
so
very
maybe
long
next
thing. It'll
week.
fill up the rest.
Okay.
Just the reading will
Okay,
fill up the rest of
okay,
our
you're
time.
right, you're right.
So
You're right.
I thought that this phrase is very, very important because this is the first of a series of questions that Moses rightfully is asking of God. Who are you? What should I tell the people? How do I explain you to them? How do you what, how are they going to say, oh my goodness, you have seen God and now you know God's secret name? What is this? So there's a lot that is in the literature about God, what God says to Moses. Any comments? I'm sure in Gail, in her, in Friedman, I'm sure Larry, in his text, and Pastor Bruce, there's a lot here. There's a lot here because it's not just a remembrance of the past, living in the present, but hope for the future.
Well,
in all of the different translations. Yes, Gail, you had your hand up first.
well, Friedman says that the name of God is now revealed. It is a verb. It is third person. It is
That's
singular.
right.
It is masculine, which goes without saying. Its root meaning is to be. It is generally understood to be a causative form. Its tense is the imperfect, and it cannot be limited to a past, present, or future. Its nearest translation would be, he causes to be. And then we get into the masculine part, but I'm not going to go there. So.
Okay. Any other commentary? Yes, Don.
It seems to me too, it's magic word. It's an incantation that infuses the power of God into Moses, into a human being. And so it seems like those words transfer divine power to a mortal being just through words. There's some remarkable verses here. And on a lighter side too, I can imagine Moses going back home that evening and Zipporah saying, "So how was your day, Moses?" That's supposed to be funny. But anyway,
Okay.
I laughed.
Gail, read the translation in the text, not the commentary.
Let's see. We're at 14, correct?
13.
What's
Yes.
your name? Yeah.
What is his name? What shall I say to them? And God said to Moses, I am who I am. And he said,
Okay. Okay. Any other translation?
I just have the Aya, Asher, Aya in mind.
Yes, yeah. Well, we talked about the fact that in Hebrew, there is no verb to be in
Right.
the present, right?
Right.
So it cannot be I am who I am because there is no am. And the translation, grammatically is I'll be who I'll be. It's in the future. And it's it can be both. It can be female and can be masculine. Not plural, but I'm going to be who I'm going to be in the future.
right.
Right.
That's what Friedman said.
Yeah, so it's very, very, very different. Very, very different. When I say I am Mary Fleming, but after I'm married, I'm going to be somewhere else. It's not the same to say I am who I am, forget it, you don't need the name. But God says, I'll be who I'll be, which is a very strange way of saying it. I have
It's also
my
very
thought and you can
prophetic.
think this.
It's very prophetic.
Exactly. It's future.
That's right.
That's what Friedman said. He said it can be I am who I am or I shall be who I shall be. Yeah, it's
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, here's an interesting, okay, please. Larry first.
I'm going to Fox, who some consider
Please.
the most literal translations. Thus you say to the children of Israel, I will be there, sends me to you.
That's the translation of that verse?
Yes.
Read it again,
Can you say that again, Larry?
Okay. God said to Moshe, Ayah, Asher, Ayah, I will be there, howsoever I will be there. And he said, thus you shall say to the children of Israel, Ayah, I will be there, sends me to you. I will be there is all caps. And this is its translation, not commentary.
Good, thank you. It's in future, yeah. If there is any other translations that you hold, you can check that.
It has, based on what I've read, let me just mention a few things. This is Martin Buber. The true name of a person is the essence of the person, distilled from his real being, so that he is present in it once again. What is more, he is present in it in such a form that anybody who knows the true name and knows how to pronounce it in the correct way can gain control of him. The person himself is unapproachable. He offers resistance, but through the name he becomes approachable. The speaker has the power over him. So it's a two-way sword. It's a two-way sword. When you know someone intimately, you know the strengths and weaknesses of the individual. Okay? And so if you know God intimately, one of the potential pitfalls is to not only know the good, but things not so good. And so when Moses is asking the name, he wants to be able, not so much to have power over the situation, but it is also getting closer to the individual. It's almost like a breed. Yeah, Rabbi Mary and then Pastor Bruce.
No, Pastor Bruce first.
I was just reading a couple of different things here. There's a Rabbi Harold Kushner that says, do you know who he is?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. In ancient times, a name was more than an identifying label. And this goes along with what was just said a few moments ago. Your name was your essence, what you were all about, your identity rather than your identification. To ask what is God's name is to ask what is God all about? What does he stand for? And then it goes on to say, in some other things I'm reading here, that since this is only really mentioned in Torah once, that you're kind of saying not only that I will be who I will be, but that it's also being or is, which makes it, I mean, that's kind of interesting because you can't do anything else with God. Is being, will be, I will be who I will be. I mean, it's just, it's the is and the being itself is to me the essence of God is just is.
That's that's I like that a lot. I'll tell you what I'm thinking about, because it's for the future, as Martin mentioned, it's like a prophecy, it's about the future. When I think about this sentence, what I say is, I'll be what I need to be at that time. So if I need to be this, I'll be this. If I need to be this, I'll be that. It's like when I went to see my grandchild and I was working with him or playing with him, my son says, don't be a teacher, just be his friend. Well, at that point, I should not be a teacher. I should be a friend. That's what's appropriate. So as God is fluent and turns to whatever, there is a book called God as a Verb, which is what you're saying is the being. It's not saying I am Shlomo ben Chaim. No, that's static. Bruce is your name, and unless you change it, that's your name. Regarding your essence, that can be fluid, because now you are studying. So let's say you are part of a study group, and then you're part of who you lead and your job in this. So it's as needed, the being of us changes. It's no.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Gail, and then I want to say something, and I'll let, Gail, and then Joanne.
I was just going to say, life is not static, and neither is God.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Everything changes every second. So
Perfect.
Nothing is static. And that's why God has to
Absolutely.
be a verb.
Very
It's
good.
a difficult
I
concept.
think there's a book by that title. Anyway, Joanne, yes, please.
If I taught yoga for 15 years. And one of the first things I taught in yoga was how you could come up with your own, almost your own essence, that fluid within you. And maybe I returned to Green Valley on December 15th, and maybe at some time I can teach you how to do this for yourself. But in doing this, you learn that you really are out here someplace. You're beyond yourself. And when Moses was coming to God in the bush, and God says, take off your shoes, okay? So that all the essence of Moses was going to God. There wasn't the shoes to keep him from doing that. And I just see, I guess, all the things you're talking about is just absolutely amazing, because you're identifying not only God, but you're identifying yourself, your own essence. So, yeah.
Very good. Very good. I'd like to read something from Sarna and his commentary. First of all, when you want to know someone's name, or you name something, and he says in the ancient world, it implied the wielding of power over the one named. Hence, the divine name can only proceed from God himself. Okay? However, if we look at things historically, so for a while, if we look at things historically, in the course of the Second Temple period, the tetragrammaton, or the four-letter word, the four letters for the name of God, Yud He Vav He, okay, was to get away from this concept of metaphysical potency, if you will. It therefore was no longer pronounced, and words were substituted. Okay? You have the word Adonai or Adonai. It depends if you come from Brooklyn or if it's but Adonai comes into play here, and other words over the centuries have been added, Hashem, so they do not pronounce the word of God. But the tetragram Yud He Vav He gave rise to the mistaken word Jehovah. The original pronunciation was eventually lost, and modern attempts to recovery are conjectural. In other words, we're really not sure of the correct pronunciation of those words. Okay. God's response to Moses' query cannot be the disclosure of a hitherto unknown name, for that would be unintelligible to the people and would not resolve Moses' dilemma. However, taken together with the statement, the implication is that the name Yud He Vav He only came into prominence as the characteristic personal name of the God of Israel in the time of Moses. This tradition accords with the facts that the facts that the various divine names found in Genesis are no longer used except for occasionally in poetic texts, and that all of the personal names listed beforehand, none is constructed of the prefix Yeho or Yahu, Yah. Okay. That was the first name of this type. Is really Yocheved, that the name of Moses' mother. And Ibn Ezra points out that Moses, in his direct speech, invariably uses the name Yud-He Vav-He, not Elohim, for God. Without it, remember later on, Pharaoh is going to say, I don't know this name. Okay. Without doubt, the revelation of the divine name to Moses registers a new stage in the history of Israelite monotheism. So, and my name, my appellation, how I am addressed and referred to. This is how you're supposed to refer to me. For Moses, and what he's supposed to tell the Israelites. But at a later time, people realized that it's not proper to use the direct name because it may exercise the fact that we could have power over God, and therefore we shun that, and we're going to now call God by using other terms. So that's sort of the history around this too. I think it becomes just interesting. So any other comments?
Marty,
Please, yes.
just a comment. We can analyze the Torah with what you're saying, which is going into the holiness and what we want to say. I recommend a book that I think only Gail read, which is Who Wrote the Bible?
Yes.
If you are into archaeology and scientific looking at history, it's by Elliot Friedman. It's a fascinating, easy reading book. And it talks about, Marty, on the change of the usage of names for God.
Yes.
And then Gail told us to read Exodus, which I'm reading now, and it's even more fascinating. We can remain into just the level of religious content, or if you want to say, since you mentioned that, I think it's just unbelievable. We say, Marty, that God has 70 names. 70. Yes. So, but it won't break your belief. It's not going to break, but that book is fascinating.
It's a good point. Yeah, I think all of these discussions are interesting. It is, I think it's worthwhile knowing, but all these different aspects, bringing in other subjects, not just the religious interpretation of Torah, but also to me, it seems more alive when we get into all of these different side commentaries that each of us bring into the discussion, because then it's a living Torah. Because not everybody will see the same words the same, but to understand that there are many different ways of seeing the words or hearing the words, and how feelings get involved and how psychological aspects get involved, it strengthens it sort of strengthens the story and makes it part of, I know I should say, I'm really speaking for myself, but it makes it part of me. It makes me say, I see it all over in so many different ways. And so I don't know, and each one of you are going to walk away from these things understanding it differently because of your own life experiences. And but I think the overall message is that we're not, by doing these things, I don't think it weakens the messages in any way. I think in my mind, I think it strengthens what is being said here, because it gives us a little more understanding. Yeah. Okay, Gail, yes.
No, I was just going to say, it isn't a matter of whether you believe in God or not. It's because everybody's concept of God is different.
Exactly.
So I may say your concept is not what my concept is, but that doesn't necessarily, the word God is, it's a verb. I don't know what else to say.
Well, God, yes, it is action. God does. And that's part of that story too.
God isn't out there or in there. He's, you're immersed. You're like the wave in the ocean. You're just part of the whole thing.
Yoda would be proud of you when he would say, "May the force be with you."
Well, he and I had talked several times.
Right.
Is it because that's what we're describing, a force, as opposed to a thing.
Mm-hmm.
A thing is an idol, and Yoda is very Jewish, if you will, in his commentary.
Yes.
So but that's yes, Don.
Yeah, going back to the scene with Moses, I mean, at that time, we have to consider literacy, because we're talking here about what words mean and how everybody interprets the text differently. But at that time, the only written text was Egyptian or Mesopotamian script, or it certainly wasn't Hebrew. And so whatever God communicated to Moses, and then Moses was charged with communicating to the Hebrew people, would have been entirely oral.
Notes.
Sorry. So at some point we've come, now it's written in black, it's on pages and electronic. And so now we're faced with having the different meanings of what we're reading about.
That's right.
But our personal opinion is that if we have any difference of opinion of what God is, it's entirely due to ego resistance. That we force ourselves to interpret God the way we want to. I think we just haven't evolved far enough that eventually we'll all see God in the same way. Anyway, I'm babbling on as usual.
Okay. Good, Don. Good. Any other comments before we read on? Well, let's if somebody would be kind enough to read verse 16 and then 17. Let me see. I think you can go from 16 through 22.
Okay, shall I?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
That's fine.
Go and gather the elders of Israel together, and say unto them, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, of Isaac, and of Jacob, hath appeared unto me, saying, I have surely remembered you, and seen that which is done to you in Egypt. And I have said, and I will bring you up out of the affliction of Egypt, unto the land of the Canaanite, and the Hittite, and the Amorite, and the Perizzite, and the Hivite, and the Jebusite, and the Donald Trumpers, and all the Americans to a land flowing with milk and honey. And thou shalt
The
hearken unto my
termites.
voice. That's not what it says, but I leave off the last part.
Okay, keep going.
Okay. And thou shalt come, thou and the elders of Israel, unto the king of Egypt, and ye shall say unto him, the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, hath met with us. And now let us go, we pray thee, 3 days' journey into the wilderness, that we may sacrifice to the Lord our God. And I know that the king of Egypt will not give you leave to go, except by a mighty hand. And I will put forth my hand and smite Egypt with all my wonders, which I will do in the midst thereof. And after that he will let you go. And I will give this people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. And it shall come to pass that when ye go, ye shall not go empty, but every woman shall ask of her neighbor, and that of her that sojourneth in her house, jewels of silver and jewels of gold and raiment. And ye shall put them upon your sons and upon your daughters, and ye shall spoil the Egyptians.
Okay, any comments? I know that was a long passage, but any comments? Yeah, yes, Joanne.
I guess because we've been talking about looking at finding the essence of God, he went into the desert to do this. But when I'm wondering is, it's later that he had the rod, etc. So, but I was wondering, it's like each of the people going into the desert for the 3 days, or they're just to learn about themselves and to learn about who this man Moses is.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's one. Yes, Larry.
I am struck by the phrase, gather the elders.
Yes.
It's not talk to the people, but basically the leaders, the influencers, I say. And that's really an important, there is a, say, political structure here, and those who have some power. And also, I'm appealing to the God of their fathers, not their gods. And the whole scenario is to really convert them to think of their personal relationships, not just go the history of their ancestors.
Excellent point. Yes, Gail, and then Pastor Bruce.
Yeah, I was just going to say, later on, Moses has to be reminded to go to the elders. Remember when he's trying to do everything? And I think it's Jethro that says to him,
Yes.
talk to the elders.
Yeah.
Yeah. It dilutes the word. You just stand in the street corner.
Excellent point. Please, Pastor Bruce.
Yeah, I was looking at the elders part too, Larry. It was very, it doesn't really describe them really well here, but in every society that uses this word, at least in the English, it is a respected group of people that usually is as part of a leadership of a tribe or something. It's very common to have that everywhere in the world, that word, at least in English. But what I'm thinking about here is that when you're talking to this group, that older, if they're really older, which most of the time I think they are respected because they're older and have more experience, there's wisdom there. That's what I think is being communicated to Moses, is there's wisdom. And just what Gail said, Jethro said, hey, there's wisdom, there's wisdom in what Jethro was saying to him later, but we'll talk about that later. But how often do we want our kids to be really wise instead of just brilliant.
Yeah.
Knowing when to use the brilliance. Yes.
But I'm just saying wisdom is more important than brilliance.
Yes.
Wisdom is more important than knowledge. I mean, it just is. And so when you look at
Please
this,
define wisdom.
the definition I would have of wisdom is following right, godly. I have to look up a good definition, but in my idea, I look at the book of Proverbs as being full of wisdom. In other words, these sayings as a group of things that are very, very important, and the right way to use, your intelligence, if you will, or your brilliance to better the world in every situation. I mean, I don't know, that maybe doesn't make sense, but I'd have to think about it. But we need wisdom. We need to know how to better our circumstances and the world's circumstances in every situation based on, if in our case, I guess the 10 Commandments, however you want to say it. But I just think that, if the world followed the 10 Commandments, we wouldn't be in such a mess.
Yeah.
True.
What you said is very important. Wisdom for its sake is not
Yeah.
everything.
Goodbye.
Understanding
Mhm.
is,
Wisdom and
in other
understanding
words,
is
knowing when.
It's
Knowing
part
when
of wisdom.
to use the different parts of that of what you have learned is
But
very
Moses has to talk to these elders. He has to
Yes.
convince elders. He has to convince Pharaoh. He has to convince the slaves themselves. He's got a lot of
Exactly.
convincing to do here.
But I'll tell you, Pastor Bruce, I have a very quick definition of wise. Is a wise person never gets in situations that the smart one can get out of. So a wise
Very good.
person does not get into situations that the clever, smart can get out of. So it's like, understanding and thinking and thinking for what's going to happen if I do this.
That's right. Good
Good,
points.
good. That's good.
Good points. Thank you. David, you're on.
It's Wendy.
Actually, it's me.
Oh, okay.
All right, in a very, very simple way, as I was listening to everybody describe wisdom, wisdom is actually a form of tact, which is getting somebody to do what they do not want to do and having them thank you for it. And then everything goes as it should.
Those are the remarks of a very good teacher.
So in other words, somebody needs a good Secretary of State,
Oh, yeah.
Or
a
a
person
good
with words. That's right.
Everyone loses a power struggle.
That's right. Excellent. Very good. All very good comments. Any other comments that anyone wants to make about what we just read?
Oh, there's so much.
So basically, there's repetition of what God, what Moses is to tell the people is repetition of what God said to Moses. Okay, the first part of this whole deal. And then God is showing what he will do, but with the people. Okay, it's not just what God is going to do. Okay, because he's now saying and saying that you're going to have to do some things too. It's not just going to be me being God. You're saying to the people that God expects you to do certain things as well. And to prove all of this, you're going to have to show your respect to God over 3 days. Okay? So, let's see what Moses says in response to this. Oh, okay, I'm sorry, Don. Yes, and then Joanne.
One more comment. Pharaoh to the Egyptians is God. He was not the king, he was God. And so he made all the decisions with respect to the Hebrews
Yes.
and others he enslaved. So, but God is going to punish the Egyptians, plural, which is very sad because it would only take the Pharaoh to change things. But if we see another case where there's mass casualties.
This argument came up, that you're making comes up at the Nazi trials. Okay.
Exactly.
It's the same
Exactly.
argument. And God is saying that's not enough to excuse those people. Okay, because they believed that was the right thing to do.
I know, but
Yeah.
Nuremberg trials were a little bit different because there you've got an educated population who could have made different decisions, different choices.
So could have some of the other people. Remember, there are other pharaohs. There are other people who stand in the line to be pharaohs that can change everything, but they don't, because it's money and power that keeps them in position. Okay, and the people believe because of that the pharaoh is a god. Yes. Yes, Pastor Bruce.
I have a question for Rabbi Miri. It's a Hebrew question. In this section, 16 through 22, is God instructing? I see certain things. The Hebrew word na means please, yes? Na, please?
Yes. Yes.
And-
Please.
and-
Yes.
Yeah, and is God instructing Moses to say please go, or please be polite? What is he saying there actually in 18?
What verse are you looking at?
18.
Nelchana, 18. Yeah.
Yeah. Is he saying something with the word na in there?
Well, if you see in Hebrew, I don't know if you have the text, there is what do you call the little lines that you put between two words?
Yes.
They have a name. So here it appears with there, Nelchana, as if it was one word.
Okay.
It's not in God na, like he says for Miriam. Refana la, please heal her, please.
Okay.
But you're a very good point. I did not notice, but it's like there are words in English that we don't put together, which I never know, like this one, or home time, or are they separated words, or you put the line?
You
I-
combine
That's
them.
a name.
I get what you're saying. I just
Yeah.
wonder if God is instructing him to be super polite with Pharaoh. That's what I'm wondering.
No.
No?
well, דברי נקרא עלינו, ואתה נלחנה לה 3 ימים בדד ונזבחה לאלוהינו. It is a polite way. It is a polite way.
Okay.
Because it says, and you say aloud, God, the God of the Hebrews, came by. This is by chance. It just passed by, Nikra, just passed by for us. And now let's, it will be a good way to say it. Let's please, it could be please, away 3 days in the desert, and we're going to sacrifice to God, our God, which is interesting. Here we have the Yud Hey Vav Hey plus the plural.
Yeah.
Elohim, Eloheinu.
Yes.
You have a double name of God there.
Yes.
I don't know if
I
I
just-
help you much, but I never noticed that, and I should. And Elchana, yes, it is for politeness.
Good.
I think it is for politeness.
Good. Thank you.
So if you make a sacrifice and it's pleasing to God, is it another way of honoring God?
Well, it's a way of honoring, but these things, these words that come up disturb me quite a bit, because Pharaoh said, okay, at the end, after everything happens, he says, okay, so just go out 3 days and celebrate something. So they were celebrating. The Hebrews were celebrating, and Pharaoh knew that it takes 3 days of celebration. And then he noticed, oh, look, they didn't come back, woo-hoo, and started running after them. But for 3 days, they went to celebrate, to sacrifice, to pray. And it's a very important piece over there, because then we, Hebrews, we had 3 days advantage to the Egyptians to get to the sea. But I was wondering, if Pharaoh knew that we are sacrificing and celebrating the spring, it says, all the time it happened. What's that about? They were just slaves, or they were organized with the elders, by tribes maybe, and they were celebrating with sacrifice. I'm not going to be here when you discuss that, if you wish, if you choose. So, but pay attention to the fact that Pharaoh knew that they have a celebration of spring, and they sacrificed at that time.
Okay. Did you want to add anything else, Rabbi Mary, if you're not going to be with us next week?
Yeah, bless me, or I'll bless you, or I'll be a blessing. That's what we said. I'll be a blessing. I'm going to the Holy Land, the land of
Milk and honey.
Milk and honey for 3 weeks. So I hope I have a lot of milk and honey. The milk in Israel is really good. Thank you very much for including me in this wonderful group. I really appreciate that.
Oh, we appreciate you a lot, Rabbi Mary, and have a very safe journey.
Oh, Marky, you do such a wonderful job, and everyone comes with such wonderful ideas. It enriches my life. So thank you very much, and be good.
What
Thank
I'm
you,
going
Anita.
to do is, I don't know how far we will get before you're able to get back with us. But Paul, I'm going to let you know that, and for some of you, if you want to look up some things about Paul McCartney of the Beatles, and some of his music, and maybe some of the influence on by his Jewish wives. Okay.
Oh.
One of the things that specifically that I would like you to read, to look into, and I will save this for when we for at least next week, or when Rabbi Mary comes back, is the song "Hey Jude."
Hey, Jew, huh?
Hey, no, Hey Jude, Jude, Jude. It was
Yehuda.
Yehuda.
Yeah, that's interesting. Never thought of it.
Something that it dovetails into all of our discussions that we couldn't condense into 1 week. It may take as much as 3 weeks to get through this. But if we do get through it, I would like to give you an advance notice to maybe look that up on the internet at the lyrics and what they were about and everything. And you'd say, I understand the parallel. Paul McCartney was a very interesting fellow. All of his wives were Jewish. Go figure. But the Beatles were influenced by a lot of Jewish people. They circled themselves with all Jewish people in their lives to get them to where they were, which I find interesting. Paul McCartney is also a composer of an oratorio. He was a very religious or religiously oriented man. And if you want to listen to that, you can pull that up on the internet, Oratorio by Paul McCartney. Okay, it's a very interesting, there's some very interesting facets to all of their lives that I think in a way dovetails into this similar discussion, okay, and their music, okay, as you think about things. And then we can, if we want, we can also branch into Simon and Garfunkel. Okay, you can see
Oh,
the
Leonard Cohen, hallelujah.
yes.
Leonard Cohen,
And there's
absolutely.
no question about that. That happens to be one of my favorite poems by Leonard. When I was in Canada, specifically Montreal, it was very interesting. Everyone wanted to know if I was related to Leonard Cohen. Because he's their he was their poet laureate. We think of him in other ways, but he was their poet laureate for a long time. So yeah, there's a lot more you can see a lot of intricacies and how these passages have influenced other realms of art. Okay, enough said. Any announcements, Ruth Ann? Oh, I'm sorry, Joanne. Okay, yes, Joanne.
Okay, I just saw on TV that they're going to have a special of the Beatles, and they're actually old movies of them and them working together, etc. And that's all I can tell you because I wasn't quite listening. I tuned in, but I was too late to what they were saying.
I think Disney is streaming it.
Yes, it's on Disney Plus. Yes.
Okay.
So unless you subscribe to Disney Plus, you can't see it. Maybe in the future it will become available. But right now we will only know about some of these things. Yes, Ruth Ann.
Okay, the only two things were have a nice Thanksgiving, everybody.